What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Have some fun stuff to talk about today. You guys know I always want to talk about Metroid Prime if something comes up for it, and looks like something did come up about Metroid Prime 4 yesterday, actually. It really blew up on the internet. So we're going to go over what happened and where I kind of fall on this whole situation with apparently a developer that may be working either alongside or pretty much collaborating with Nintendo to get Metroid Prime 4 out the door. It's pretty interesting to see, so let's get started. So the other day, a YouTuber by the name of Doctray81 actually made a discovery on LinkedIn.com. Of course, LinkedIn is a site where really professionals in different fields will go, they'll kind of build up their profile and they'll network back and forth with other professionals, whether it's in their field or other organizations, to kind of collaborate, maybe get a job that way. It's just a way for them to kind of post what they're doing and I guess even show off what they're doing at that point. But in this case, Doctray came across a very interesting listing from Bandai Namco Singapore that seems to point to Metroid Prime 4. None of this is actually confirmed by anyone yet, but man, does it really look like Bandai Namco is helping Nintendo with Metroid Prime 4. So here's the listing right here. You're going to see it's the lead designer, Bandai Namco Studios Singapore, and this was actually posted, it appears to be posted May 2016. Now that I believe is when that profile for this listing was started, so they could have been editing. In fact, I'm going to talk to you about a few parts where they absolutely had to have edited this at some point, but that, of course, 1 year, 10 months ago. The projects are the unannounced IP, first-person shooter / adventure exclusive to the Nintendo Switch. Now, a year and 10 months ago, we didn't know it was called the Nintendo Switch, so they would have had to have edited this at some point, because people are asking, well, why haven't they changed the unannounced IP to Metroid Prime 4? I'll actually talk to you guys about that in a minute as well. Ace Combat 7 VR exclusive to PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 VR. That appears to be talking mostly about the VR element that appears to be exclusive to the PS4 version, because I don't think there's going to be any iteration on PC, or in this case Xbox One, because there's no headset there for VR. And then the very interesting one at the bottom, Ridge Racer 8. It's going to be exclusive to Nintendo Switch. Of course, we all know about Ridge Racer. It's been around for a long time. I remember playing it actually on the Nintendo 64, so it's pretty much graced a ton of different consoles. Very interesting to see the 8th one being exclusive for the Nintendo Switch, as listed here. Now, to go further in on Reset Era, there's a very good thread going about this. Doctray's video and the Reset Era thread are both down in the description and the sources if you want to check any of this out. But other people there started to go through and found other mentions, such as concept design, created many design concepts in order to meet Nintendo's exacting requirements. The VIP presentation regularly presented pitches, storyboards, design directives, and gameplay to both Nintendo headquarters and Bandai Namco Entertainment Group. So it sounds like whatever they're talking about here, whatever this first-person shooter adventure game, it seems that Nintendo is completely wrapped up in it. More than likely because it's their IP, more than likely because it's Metroid Prime 4. I don't really know any other first-person shooter adventure game that Nintendo would be working on currently other than Metroid Prime. I really can't think of any, because I don't think there are any, unless they're taking some game like they did with Metroid back in the day and turn it into a first-person shooter that we haven't really thought about being a first-person shooter. However, it seems like everything is kind of pointing at Bandai Namco Singapore, working between Bandai Namco and Nintendo to help get Metroid Prime to the finish line. And what's very interesting here is, over at PressStart.com, they actually went through more of the LinkedIn profiles and found that quite a few of the developers over at Bandai Namco Singapore appear to have come from LucasArts, specifically developers who worked on Star Wars 1313. Remember that canceled project where it had that really cool looking trailer that had, I thought, some really neat looking tech? Whether it was real or not, whether it was running on real hardware or not, I don't know, but it seemed like they had some really cool ideas, and man, if they're coming over to work on Metroid Prime 4, the game engine could look really cool, like with really cool things they could do with the Switch hardware. They were very talented. It was very clear. They're extremely talented over there, and just their game didn't get done because I believe that was around the time that Lucasfilms, LucasArts, everything was sold. LucasArts closed down. They'd get rid of that game. And it was unfortunate because we never got to try the game or see if what we saw in that trailer is actually real, but it still really, I think, gives us a little confidence with the developers from there, and if they are working on Metroid Prime 4 at this time, actually gets me more excited that Bandai Namco would be involved here. Now, you might be looking at this wondering, why wouldn't they just change the unannounced IP to something like, it's Metroid Prime 4, that's what we're working on? Well, considering Nintendo keeps a lot of these companies under NDA completely, they don't want anyone to leak anything, and trust me, this is how leaks happen. If you know the source, and you're like, maybe I'll see if I can meet one of their developers in a bar somewhere or something. For really, I guess at this point, journalists would go meet them at a bar, ask them a couple questions, and all of a sudden leaks happen. It does happen. There's a thing. So I understand why they'd want to keep that completely under NDA, and they don't want anyone saying anything. So this would stay unannounced IP at this point because they don't want to draw attention to it while they're still getting it done. Now, of course, when it shows up at E3, which I think that's where we're going to learn about Metroid Prime 4, because it's becoming less and less likely that it's going to be out this year after seeing their investors report. But if that's the case, we'll hear about it at E3. They will probably show Bandai Namco or whoever's helping them develop it on screen, and then we'll go from there. This just looks extremely likely, and for people who would be concerned, oh no, Bandai Namco's helping, they might damage Metroid Prime. Look, from what we've seen, the talent in Singapore seems good. And honestly, this isn't the first time Nintendo's used Bandai Namco. I mean, they helped with Smash Bros. On the Wii U, and a lot of people seem to like it. It sold really well, and overall it was pretty good, I think. So in this case, yeah, I'm sure they do a good job helping them with programming. It appears that they are mostly working alongside Nintendo to where Nintendo has the absolute final say. I mean, they're pitching stuff to them, just try to get them interested. So Nintendo has this on a short leash. It's very clear. I wouldn't worry too much about quality control when it comes to this game. It sounds like these guys are mostly there to get the programming. A lot of the, I don't want to say tedious, but the stuff that's going to take a while, they usually need an army of developers for. Yeah, bring in Bandai Namco Singapore to get it done, and then really get it to the finish line in time for E3 and maybe late 2018. We'll see. Also, Ridge Racer 8 on the Switch. Sure, why not? Ridge Racer's been on so many things by now. Like I said, I played it on the Nintendo 64, the PlayStation. It's been on Android, iOS. I mean, yeah, it was never my racer that I really played a lot, but I know there is a cult following for that game, and just after seeing so many systems, it's been on the 360, the GameCube, the PS2, it's been on like everything. So at this point, the fact that it's exclusive for the Switch, I think is more surprising, because I feel like they might have wanted to put it on other products at this point, other systems, but I mean, maybe they got used to the Android, iOS, where they're developing for ARM, and they're like, hey, let's get a team together and let's put this thing on the Switch and see how it sells. There's not a ton of racers. Sure, there's Mario Kart. I get that, right? But I mean, there's not much other than that. I mean, what's the Gear Club for actual racing with, I guess, semi-simulation? I don't know. Listen, Ridge Racer's a very, very floaty, very drifty type of game. So while it's not realistic, it's still another car racer that's on a system. Doesn't really have a lot of racing games. All right, next up, let's talk about Google, because we got a little more information. This is from a site called The Information. I'm not kidding, that's what it's called, but they have a subscription service, so I linked to Ars Technica because they go over the article, so you don't have to pay to read the article, or at least you can read like the first paragraph, then you got paid. But anyway, we're gonna talk a little bit about Google and their new console. Remember we heard about that a little while ago, where there was a lot of speculation around Google talking about and releasing a game console of some kind? Well, yes and no. So it looks like they are more so focused on a game delivery, more so over your internet than you actually playing on actual hardware in your living room without the internet. In this case, they're talking more about a game streaming service, and it seems to be more in line with something like PlayStation Now, for example. That's a service that people have used with varying degrees of success. I've used it and it's worked. There's definitely input lag though. It seems like Google wants to tackle this with a service that they are dubbing, or at least calling, the Yeti. So originally, according to the information, they say that it was originally supposed to work for the Chromecast. I have no idea how a controller would work with that, by the way, unless it all of a sudden just loads up drivers and, hey, sync your Bluetooth controller of some kind. Again, maybe you gotta buy a controller. Originally it's gonna be used for the Chromecast. It really doesn't matter the type of hardware you're using. More so matters about your internet connection. So if you're using something very weak, yeah, it should work because the computers that are at the data center are doing all of the work. They're just streaming your button presses and what you're seeing on screen back and forth to make it happen. Now, there is actual hardware in the works of some kind, whether it's like a set-top box that you get, a controller. That's the thing, they need to come up with a controller that you buy. And the one thing about this is it wouldn't have to be expensive, $100 maybe with a controller. It doesn't have to be powerful. You're not playing it on that box. You're playing it on, again, servers at a data center, hundreds of miles away. And that's always been the problem because there is input lag. You have to hit a button, it shoots off the data center, comes back, and then it happens on screen. That's always kind of been the problem. There is noticeable lag. Don't play a fighting game, it's not going to be fun. An RPG, yeah, you might have fun with it. But here's the thing. It was originally set for holiday of 2017, so it should already be out now. But but apparently they delayed it for some reason, and sometime in 2018, if they want to tackle this, is when it will come out. I think maybe they delayed it for the hardware because they realized, how would it work on the Chromecast? We need to maybe put some hardware out for it. So I guess it'll be called the Yeti, the service will or something, and then they'll have some kind of set-top box that you can buy, or I guess you can use it in your web browser even. That would be at least a little interesting. You plug in a controller and, Chrome lets you just start playing games. There needs to be a couple things that need to be at least be competitive. Pricing, obviously, right? Maybe some people are watching YouTube and it pops up and is like, would you like to just play this game now? You're watching a Let's Play, you just want to play it, and then you can rent out a server and play it. I don't know. It's going to be, it's unfortunate. I wanted them to be more competitive, but if you're streaming games, you're not going to be as competitive as with a PlayStation or a Switch or an Xbox, where you don't have to be online and you're playing everything right there with your nice new system. Next up, let's talk a bit about Media Creates. This is the sales charts in Japan from last week. This does include the second week of Monster Hunter, although Monster Hunter had only been out for, 2 days prior, so this is technically like, I guess, 9-10 days of Monster Hunter being on the market. And it is a drop. We're going to see that here. You're going to see at the top, Monster Hunter World is at 346,187 copies. That is all on the PS4, of course. Almost at 1.6 million, 1.591 million. Right below that, Dragon Ball FighterZ did debut in that week, 68,731 units. Look at Splatoon 2, by the way, almost at 2 million units, sold another 25,000 units there. Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which is out, this is like its second week, I believe. It's 114,000 overall, 21,279 for the week. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which will not go away, by the way. That game is absolutely crushing it in the sales charts, 21,263. Mario Odyssey at number 6. You'll see Elder Scrolls Skyrim actually launched on the Switch in Japan with a total of 13,922 there at number 7. Number 8, Breath of the Wild. Number 9, Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. And then 10, Mario Party Top 100. The whole top 10, really, after the first 2 are all Nintendo games. Let's jump over to the systems here. You'll see the PS4 had a pretty big drop-off, about 31,000 or so, down to 109,287. The Switch jumped about 2,000 units to 49,165. That actually brings the total for the Switch up to over 3.6 million now. The 3DS at 11,461. Within the margin of error, I'd say it's pretty much right there with last week. The Vita had a nice little jump of about 500 units up to 4,207. And the Xbox One dropped a little over 1,000 units down to 637. So yes, overall, as we expected, Monster Hunter did have a drop-off. Usually the first week, as we see with pretty much every game, people go out, they buy it right away, and then it has like a bit of it starts to kind of tail off to very small amounts as you go. But here's the thing, it did jump to 1.6 million just about. It's a little under that in its first 9-10 days. That's pretty good overall. We're going to see what the NPDs tell us, because Capcom will probably release a press release of some kind around that release just to kind of talk about the numbers. This will end up being the best-selling Monster Hunter game, as we talked about before. I'm also happy to see Dragon Ball FighterZ get a pretty good release there at 68,000, despite Monster Hunter being out, because everyone's buying Monster Hunter in Japan. Let's be honest, this is the way it is. And then down from there, the Switch and the 3DS pretty much took over every other spot. Nintendo still takes over quite a few of the games in the top 10, even down to the top 20 charts. So not surprising there. Switch still staying right around the 47,000 to 50,000 mark for systems. Again, pretty standard. And we're going to start seeing the PS4 start to again taper off down to just over 100,000 units, 104,000. We'll probably see it drop below that by next week, and it'll probably become business as usual with those two systems right around each other until the PS4 probably drops back down until the next big release. Again, though, no real Monster Hunter games coming up again for the PS4, so I don't know what the next game will be that will really push the PS4 up. Maybe Kingdom Hearts? I'm trying to think of anything that would really push it up big time. And our last bit of news, it seems like the fall of Marvel vs. Capcom has finally reached an all-time low. We talked about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite struggled heavily to get to 1 million units shipped from Capcom. They said in their own financials, Infinite did not do well, and they finally put it at 1 million units shipped. And that's not very good for that series. Now, here's where it starts to really fall off. We heard about Capcom leaving out of their Capcom Pro Tour 2018. They mostly talked about Street Fighter, didn't really talk at all about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. And then Evo puts out their lineup for games that they'll be competing in, and Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is not there. So they tweeted this picture out, and you're going to see all of the different games there, and you're going to notice a couple things. Tekken 7 is there, as we would expect. There's 2 Smash Bros. Games, by the way. Super Smash Bros. Wii U, and then Super Smash Bros. Melee. Injustice 2. Dragon Ball FighterZ, a very new game, is there. Sometimes games get left out because they're too new, which, by the way, one of the games on this list isn't even out yet, which is kind of funny. Dragon Ball FighterZ is indeed going, and that's going to actually, I think that's me the one that I would want to watch. That looks like that's going to be a ton of fun. Then we have Guilty Gear Xrd Rev 2, and then Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle, which is not actually out until May. So there you go. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite got left out, in this case for a game that's not out until May. That tells you how much confidence they have in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Listen, a lot of people didn't buy it. People didn't like the Capcom Jam DLC instantly into that game. They very clearly cut down on budgets. We've heard some very concerning things about the budget. I remember Liam talked about, in this case Liam Robertson talked about how the budget appears to be half of the Street Fighter DLC budget. That's a little concerning. People pointed out it pretty much lifted animations completely from Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And, well, here we are. This is seriously the lowest point I've ever seen the Marvel vs. Capcom series get to. This is the first time that a Marvel game has been left out of EVO, and that's an issue when they're going to bring in a game that comes out in May, technically a couple months before this takes place, which is the first week in August. They're going to bring that game instead. That game could be terrible for all we know, but they'd rather take their chances there with Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle than with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Tells you where the fighting community's head is right now around that game. And that's going to do it for Newswave today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's Metroid Prime 4. The rumors are everywhere, but it does appear that we're kind of closing in on the developer here with Bandai Namco possibly helping. Bandai Namco Singapore is the most interesting, with some of those developers from LucasArts helping out. That could be really interesting to see what they come up with for Metroid Prime 4. Keep in mind, we haven't even seen a screenshot from this thing, so we have no idea what it even looks like right now. And a lot of people kind of look at the Switch as kind of the weak device on the market, which of course it is the weakest one. However, there was a point in time where people looked at the GameCube as really this weak, system that couldn't do great visuals, which eventually, obviously, Resident Evil stuff came out. But I remember when Metroid Prime came out, and all of a sudden people were like, whoa, this system is powerful. So are we going to kind of, at this point, are we going to relive that history, and all of a sudden Metroid Prime 4 comes out, and it is this technical marvel that is like, wow, the Switch has some power behind it. I'll be curious to see if any of that takes place. Then, of course, let me know what you think about the Media Create charts, or maybe you want to talk a bit about how far Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite has fallen. Maybe you're a big fan of fighting games, and you could let me and others know why it's left out of EVO, because there's got to be another reason other than just this low sales. Maybe fighting game fans of this caliber, hey, they were just put off by some of the practices that Capcom put around it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.